I want to sort of shift gears, but it is related to the workplace and the business, and we've talked some about this already. So I'm going to probably short circuit a little bit of my presentation because some of what I've talked about, or some of what I was going to talk about, you've heard about. I'm Carol Danehower. I'm University of Memphis faculty, in addition to being on the Tennessee Economic Council on Women. And I've talked with several of you about the fact that it is not a very well-known fact that the economic impact of domestic violence. My colleagues in the College of Business, remember I'm in the College of Business, they think I've sort of lost my focus because I'm looking at domestic violence. And remember, Carol, you're a management professor. We're talking about profits and losses here. And in fact, of course, we know that the economic impact is great on our state, but also in our economy, in business ability to operate. And what I've done and what I started from my work with the Economic Council, when I first read that report in 2006, I started to think about the human resource management. That's my area of research and expertise. How does domestic violence affect human resource management, and what can businesses do to impact domestic violence victims or to help domestic violence victims in the workplace? So what I started looking at, and the research I've done, is led me to doing training sessions and focus groups with businesses in the Memphis area with a colleague who's the Memphis Area Women's Council Executive Director. And we've developed training sessions to equip employers to recognize the signs of domestic violence, respond appropriately, and refer their employees to appropriate resources, to community resources like RAP, like SafeLine. And what we found is that there is an extreme lack of awareness, not only of the instances, but of the costs. And so we've really gotten familiar with a number of different businesses in the Memphis business community and what they can do to deter these costs. When you start talking about costs with companies, they start to listen and they start to see that it's a problem that affects them. The program that we developed is called Violence and Home Victims at Work, Employers Confront Domestic Violence. And I bring this up because this visual that we use, it shows the employer, the guy with the briefcase, being overwhelmed. And when we start talking to companies about this issue as it affects them, it's not just a private employee matter. It is something that comes into the workplace. They start to say, oh no, please, that is personal. We don't want to deal with our employees' personal problems. We want them to check their personal baggage at the door. And the idea is that they really can't check their personal baggage at the door. And it's a two-way street. Businesses expect to be able to contact their employees 24/7 often with their cell phone access and texting. So technology has made employees accessible 24/7. So it's impossible for them to check their personal issues at the door and not be related to the business 24/7. So rather than thinking of, and I get really sort of evangelistic about this, rather than thinking about it being work-life balance, it's really work-life integration that we have now with employees in the workplace. So things like domestic violence, issues like domestic violence come into the workplace, and you can't really think that you can stick your head in the sand. I'll show you a little of that in a minute. We've had some statistics. I'm looking at 1 in 4 women. I guess it's getting closer to 1 in 3 women experiencing some instance of domestic violence in their lifetime. When you look at the composition of our workforce, and lately there's been a lot of press on the idea that 40% of the women are the chief breadwinners in households, and how that might be affecting changes in family dynamics and so forth. These are some facts that make you realize that the intersection of women and domestic violence in the workplace has increased so much because of women's employment. And women accounting for over half of the employees in the country, and I think in Tennessee it's 46% of the workforce is women. Approximately, the other facts About 50% of battered women are harassed at work by their abusive partners. Employers can't deny this. They want to deny it. They want to not think about it, but it affects their work. 1 in 8 stalking victims miss work on average about 5 days per incident. Stalking has become, in different ways of cyber stalking, has become a very prominent means of harassment and domestic violence. We've heard talk about the homicides, the murders of women. Nearly 33%, a third of women killed in the United States workplaces between 2003 and 2008 were killed by a current or former intimate partner. Now, what that's saying is that a third of, when you hear about women being killed in the workplace, you think it's a robber, someone coming into the convenience store with their clerk and shooting them. But no, a third of those are from from an intimate partner. So the facts support our interest in looking at the cost to businesses and making businesses aware of this. The perpetrators, in a couple of studies, looked at perpetrators reporting what they did related to their work, the time they took away from work to enact this harassing behavior. 29% said they contacted their partner while they were at work. They used their work time to harass. 30% took paid or unpaid time off, and 25% left work in order to engage in that harassing behavior. They use workplace resources, 3/4 use workplace resources, their computer, their telephone, whatever, to enact this harassment. So it's there, it's in the workplace. Specifically, we're going to get to the cost in a second. I want to just remind you, many of you probably know this, of the ways that employee productivity is affected. I don't know if you take personal calls at work or you know people who take personal calls at work, but when you're from a spouse who wants to know who are you going to lunch with, they're texting you, or you're getting emails or phone calls, what are you doing while you're answering those or being bothered by those? You're not focusing on your work. You're not able to be productive. When you're worried or when you're in pain because of something that happened the night before, or because you got out of the house as quickly as you possibly could and you're worried that he's going to be out there in the parking lot waiting on you when you come out of work or go out to lunch to follow you, that you can't focus on your work. So the productivity is obviously affected. There's a term called presenteeism these days. Presenteeism is sort of the opposite of absenteeism. It's the idea that employees come to work when they really shouldn't, when their mind is not on work. And we think about it a lot in terms of when people are sick. Employees shouldn't come to work when they're sick because they can't do their job as well. They're also possibly going to infect other people. And presenteeism is a problem, as well as absenteeism, obviously. When a woman cannot go to work or won't go to work because she's been threatened if she does. So, lots of effects on productivity of the employee. Turnover. A woman or an employee who quits and says, finally, you know, he's nagging me, he's on me to get, I shouldn't associate with those people, he's isolating me, I'm just going to quit, it's not worth it. I'm afraid of what he's going to do with the kids anyway when I'm not there. Well, if you're in business, if you know anyone in business, turnover is expensive. Turnover of a good employee who quits, what are all the costs? Well, you have to train someone else. First of all, you've got to recruit and hire someone. You've got to train them to take over the job. All these costs are mounting up, right? So turnover costs related to someone leaving a job by domestic violence is huge. And then another productivity issue that you don't think of is the coworker productivity. Have you ever had a very annoying coworker or colleague that you hear everything they're talking about and you're going, I don't want to hear what you're talking about, let me do my work. Well, it's even more annoying when you're worried about your coworker who you know is experiencing a personal issue. You know there's something wrong, you don't know how to approach them, but you know there's something going on and you don't know where it's going to go. That affects the coworker productivity. So there's all kinds of productivity problems. Also, we've talked about healthcare costs. Healthcare insurance cost for the employee who has fallen down the stairs and needs to go to the ER, and that's on their health insurance. Lots of costs there. And the safety threat, the worst happens. And when I'm talking about when the worst happens, when the estranged husband is in the parking lot, when the woman leaves the office or goes into the business. You cannot turn on television. Every week it seems, and I keep a log, this is very depressing, but I keep a log of workplace domestic violence incidents. Every week if you look at the national news, there is an incident of domestic violence coming to the workplace. And many times it's someone else that's also hurt. That's also a legal liability, a safety issue for the company. And also, spillover costs to employee morale when one of those tragic incidents happens. And this sounds very minor, but the PR value for the employer. We had an incident in Memphis at ServiceMaster. ServiceMaster is one of our major employers. They have Terminix, Marinades, American Home Shield, True Green, Lawn Care. They employ a lot of people. At their corporate office one morning, the estranged husband was waiting on his wife to come to work. And, domestic violence victims, that's a consistent, right? If the domestic violence victims leave the home, they move out, they don't know where they're living, but they know where they're working, right? They know that they can find them where they're going to work, and they pretty much know what time they're working. He was there, he shot her in the parking lot, and then killed himself. This happened around 7:30 on Thursday morning, and as other people were coming to work. The counselors, the activity that ServiceMaster took on to try to help their employees heal from losing their coworker, and also from the trauma that happened in their workplace, that was a huge expenditure. So, and for the longest time in Memphis, when you heard about ServiceMaster, what did you think? Did you think about them being a great major employer in Memphis? No. You thought about, that's where they had that incident. So, the PR value. So the cost, productivity, healthcare, turnover, morale, PR, and other costs that you can't even start to measure. The costs in this country, in the U.S., more than $8 billion a year. This is business costs in 2010 that was ramped up to 2003 estimates that we were talking about. Just in the lost productivity, $1.8 billion. Just the lost productivity, not counting healthcare or mental health or any of those. This is a huge drain on our economy. We're all worried about the economy and the jobs, but a small business in Northwest Tennessee that might have 10 people, and this is happening to one person in your workforce, that's 1/10 of your workforce, 10% of your workforce. It's obvious that the costs are even greater in terms of proportion for small business, and we have lots of small businesses here in Northwest Tennessee. I won't even talk about the legal liability, but EEOC has indicated that discriminating against a victim of domestic violence could be a sex discrimination in terms of sex stereotyping. So the legal costs, obviously. We have started to look at calculations of business costs. Nationally, there are cost calculators, and I don't know if I'm not going to go to the website. I'd be glad to give it to anybody who wants to look at it in this presentation to anyone by email. But there are ways to calculate costs. Now, Bill is our research analyst, and he actually used the Texas cost calculator to look at the costs to business in Northwest Tennessee, in our 9 counties. And we're not going to share the figures with you. Number one, they're huge. You almost wouldn't believe them. They're in the millions in terms of just lost productivity. Just lost productivity. we want to check this calculator and figure out a way to be more confident that these figures are accurate. So we're going to work on that so that maybe we can get the attention of businesses by coming up with an accurate cost estimate. Because really, with so many companies on shaky grounds, shaky financial standing, a domestic violence case or domestic violence with one of their employees, for instance, can be the thing that could do the men, right? Now, what can employers do? What I don't want them to do is stick their head in the sand. You see the ostrich is looking at the business guy and saying, wait a minute, you took my place. But putting your head in the sand and thinking it doesn't really happen in my business. Or, even worse, it's a woman's problem. It's my women employees' problem. They need to get a grip and do something about it themselves. Well, we know here, we've been hearing a lot of evidence here that it's not one person's problem. It is a business problem. It is a society problem. It doesn't just affect that one person. We know that. I hope we know that now. So sticking your head in the sand and thinking that, although really employers don't want to deal with personal problems, if they can help it. But we think if we get their attention with these cost figures, maybe they will. Now, I always want to say this because some business people that I talk with, I can see them almost taking notes. What should we do? Well, we don't want to hire any of those women that are domestic violence victims. Note to self, do not hire anyone who fits the profile, which by the way, we know is not really a profile of a domestic violence victim. So, what I'm preaching about here is that firing these victims is not a viable option. And think about it, the 1 in 4 statistics or 1 in 3, if you terminate a woman because she is a potential or a known victim of domestic violence, you may be replacing her with, guess what? Another person who is a possible victim of domestic violence. So terminating that productive employee is not a viable option. Okay, I get a little into this. So what can employers do? And this isn't part of our collecting data on costs, but I can't put that out there and plant the seed that this is a business issue without giving a little bit of direction to employers. Like I said earlier, we've developed these training sessions, and these are developed from national resources. There's a national trend to educate employers on recognize the signs, recognize that not only certain age or ethnicity or socioeconomic status background is a domestic violence victim. There are CEOs, there are HR managers, there are educated PhD people, women who have been domestic violence victims. It's all across the board. So recognize that fact, recognize the signs of domestic violence, potential or domestic violence victims in your workforce. Respond appropriately, and I want to show you a couple of different sources for understanding how to respond, and then refer them to the community resources. I was so encouraged when I started this work for this hearing to know of the resources that are available here in Northwest Tennessee. There's not enough. Obviously, I know that. But there are some. There are more than people think in this rural area of Tennessee, and I'm encouraged by that and by the people who have such dedication to this issue and are trained in this. So I'm not going to go through my training seminar that we've developed, but I would be glad to share this information with anyone. And I do want to go to a couple of national resources, and again, I would be glad to talk with anyone who wants some of this information. But there is, and if I can get there, I don't know, it's always a little scary when you go off the regular PowerPoint. There is a website for businesses It's called, we're going to get there, Workplaces Respond to Domestic and Sexual Violence. Workplacesrespond.org. This is a phenomenal website. Resources for business, guidelines, guidance to develop workplace policies. I am a prophet on this because this is a great source. Whoops. Let's see. There's a model workplace policy. There's a protection order guide. There are the cost calculator. There are tools and guides for supervisors, guide programs for awareness. There's so much information on this website for businesses who are interested in minimizing these costs by implementing these policies and setting up training sessions to train their managers. So I couldn't let this opportunity go by without showing you this website. It was established by the Department of Justice. They update this website regularly. I honestly look at this website once a week because there's always new information on it. So that Workplaces Respond, no spaces, workplacesrespond.org. For any of you, and Sarah Kilgore, Sarah's not still here, right? Sarah Kilgore from Benton County is at the Chamber of Commerce there. She couldn't stay for the entire hearing, but we're trying also to get Chambers of Commerce to be interested in this and to understand that there are tools out there and the impact that this has on their the viability of their businesses. So I'm going to stop and any questions or what?
Thank you, Carol. That's really an interesting presentation.
I could talk forever, and I'd be glad to give anyone send you anything that I have that might help you.
So at the beginning, Carol, you'll remember that we said to the audience, if any of you have any questions or anything, and I know we're running behind, but we're going to stick to our word. So does anybody out there have any questions? No, I guess we just wore you out. Thank you.
Okay, I just need to say a couple things, and we still have reception materials available. We had some vendors, and I was going to get a list of the vendors and thank them all by name, but I don't have it. Barbara, do you have it? Well, while Barbara is getting it, we thank, at the beginning, we thanked the Extension, the UT Extension Family and Consumer Sciences agents, and I think some of them are still here. We thank them by name there, and I don't have my list. Yes, I do. They were so instrumental and were such great sports in, they may be all gone. No, okay, good. Heather Decker from Benton County. Thank you, Heather. Gwen Joyner from Carroll County. Okay. Sarah Poole. Sarah Poole was here. Okay. Beth Bell, Barbara Berry, Michelle Atkins, Anita Giffen, and Beverly Shelby. Let's give them all a hand. They were wonderful. Is this the list of vendors? We had Blue Cross Blue Shield, Blue Care of Tennessee, United Healthcare, that was Sylvia Stamper, Patrice Boyd of United Healthcare, Chris Moore of Behavioral Health Center in Martin, Patricia McDaniel of Northwest Safeline, Joy Rogers, also of Northwest Safeline, Christy Crossan from RAP, Gracie Kemp from West Tennessee Legal Services, Carrie Mann, also from West Tennessee Legal Services, Mike Snyder and Holly Allen from Carl Perkins Center, Alina James from the Department of Health Tender Care, and Jesse Shivers from the Tennessee Department of Health, Gibson County. So thank you all for coming and sharing your information. If nothing else, we We collected cost information, but also this was a time for you to get, or to raise our awareness, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming.